Ladies, gentlemen, Blanc, welcome to the review of the third episode of Witch, and the good times are still rolling. If this is the first of these reviews you found, you can find the previous reviews on the playlist on my channel, which should be linked in the card and in the description. If I sound strange to you, it's because I am currently recording in a room that's been recently emptied and I did not expect the sound to change this much. Now that we've been introduced to the world and all 6.5 of the squad have met, it's time to get into an adventure. Or it would be, but the third episode has decided it wants to be the secret last part of the premiere and based its entire existence on consequences of previous actions so it can force the MCs to have to sneak back into Phobos' castle. It's 3 for 3 for getting broken into at this point. In a twist of continuity I'm not sure if I should be surprised by or not, the plot is based on the key Caleb received an episode ago when he was escaping from the oubliette. Oh, so atmospheric. W.I.T.C.H, the man who slipped Caleb the key, is in trouble because now it's missing and Caleb's handcuffs have been found unlocked. Honestly, in a world where magic is a thing, this seems like the flimsiest of accusations. Even the missing key could have just been stolen by the Guardians. Phobos decides that, of course, the logical course of action is to search the entire castle top to bottom for this key, and if it isn't found, W.I.T.C.H would be punished as a traitor. That sounds like a logistical nightmare. I'm sorry I'm still on this, but I'm still not convinced Phobos should be in this episode. Like, obviously there's nothing wrong with him being in it, but he still hasn't done anything, and I still blame him for taking up screen time in the first episode that Will kind of needed. And also, I'm kind of curious now, how long can I go before I can accept the fact that he's in this show? But don't worry, I'm sure very soon he'll actually do something besides look somewhat intimidating. Speaking of looking somewhat intimidating, this obviously reused animation of Cedric transforming is kind of funny. Like, the lighting is obviously different from the rest of the scene, which had more shadows to effectively create the appropriate atmosphere for W.I.T.C.H's hopeless situation. Also, W.I.T.C.H and Rachel have completely disappeared. And now they're back, in time for the threat Cedric transformed so he could deliver in a more menacing fashion. Honestly, the idea for this episode isn't bad. Following up on a scene from the last episode and the consequences of actions that at the time made the heroes' lives easier and needing to solve a problem those actions caused is actually a really interesting direction to take the plot. It gives me a lot of faith for future episodes and how they'll handle cause and effect. As for the execution, well, I've already mentioned how I find it a bit flimsy. I feel knowing a team of magical girls broke into the castle kind of makes the idea that W.I.T.C.H would be suspicious ridiculous. And not to spoil too much, but the season 2 version of the girls could have definitely stolen that key without being noticed. Anyway, we go back to Earth to see how Caleb's doing. Specifically, how he's complaining about the makeover Hay Lin insists on giving him.
Why am I wearing enough clothes for a 400-pound clown?
You're styling! Remember, you have to blend in here.
I think this is a pretty fun thing to do with him, and some extra characterization for Hay Lin.
I made this really cute retro aviator 50s thing, and I think if you four hold him down...
Also, there are clowns on Meridian, and they apparently don't wear much fabric in their costumes. Shouldn't he have said jesters, given its medieval influences? Or am I wrong about its medieval influences? This episode puts some focus on the difference in the dynamics the girls and Caleb have with the plot. Caleb's basically a normal guy with no enforced responsibility who has chosen to be a part of this out of a sense of duty. The girls don't really have that massive a stake in what's going on despite being magically assigned the job and given superpowers in order to pull it off. Having the ostensible normie of the gang be the one with the biggest motivation to be proactive is an interesting dynamic, though it runs the risk of Caleb encroaching on the girls' agency if he continues to be the reason they go to Meridian. Blanc, meanwhile, has already found his way back to Meridian and is selling junk he doesn't understand. Eat your heart out, the Owl House. It's funny that after this episode there's gonna be some guy walking around with a bra for a hat. Speaking of that guy, he traded some information he got from his sister who works in Phobos' castle for that hat. Information about W.I.T.C.H. There's also an extremely brief scene of Caleb being confused by some skater lingo that's only there to set up a future joke that I didn't find that funny. It's a bit out of place, but I suppose it drives home the whole fish out of water dynamic Caleb should have with the planet. Blanc eventually comes back to share the bad news with Caleb, or rather to sell the bad news to Caleb. The rebel leader is not having it. Now, what's interesting is that it turns out that they actually had a planned system for what to do with the key, and Caleb did in fact hide it somewhere for W.I.T.C.H to find. It's nice to see the leader of the rebellion is actually capable of long-term planning. I'm guessing W.I.T.C.H left some very good instructions for Caleb to find the hiding place in a dungeon he'd never been in. Also, I guess they were really confident that Caleb would manage to escape by himself. Unfortunately, there was one smelly problem they didn't foresee. Blanc, who spotted Caleb hiding the key and took it. Caleb's motivation is paying W.I.T.C.H back for saving his life, which is another instance of his sense of duty. And his decision to not bring the girls with him can be interpreted one of two ways. Or both. He either doesn't want to involve them in what he sees as a more personal debt, or he doesn't trust them to be good enough to help him yet, seeing how they've only been guardians for what seems like less than a week. Speaking of the girls, they've all decided to meet up in the cave for more practice. And it's time for another round of outfit rankings because we've got some new outfits. As always, we're going from worst to best, and in that order: Cornelia, Hay Lin, Irma, Will, and Taranee. I don't know why Cornelia's outfits don't click with me. Maybe I just have something against long skirts. Also, Hay Lin lost points because everyone else is dressed to account for the cold Taranee is complaining about, and she's being that person who wears shorts while it's snowing. This is the first time we actually see the girls' complete transformation process. I'm sure there's a rebirth metaphor I'm not getting in there. Also, in the complete transformation process, they say the names of their elements while after transforming. Eat your heart out, Ben 10. While I'm sure this is just a narrative ploy to give them something to do while Caleb does his thing, I do like that we get to see the girls put in even more effort to master their powers on screen like this. They may not be very active in the plot yet, but they are getting ready.
I give you Cornelia!
Thanks for the nose.
Cornelia with the broken nose.
Okay, I want you to look at the amount of water Irma is holding up. Now tell me, where did all of this come from? Forget that we couldn't see the animals in the water, I don't even think they would fit in it. Anyway, the girls go home and Will steals the funniest joke of the episode from Irma. She also steals Irma's voice.
You promise not to freak if I tell you what it is? Then it's just a ham.
With practice over, the girls are finally led back into the plot and they find out that Caleb's gone.
Caleb is gone. I'm afraid he may have returned to Meridian.
How do you know these things, woman? They track Blanc down after smelling signs of his presence. As it turns out, Caleb traded his new clothes for information on where to find a new portal. Hay Lin takes offense to this. It's very entertaining.
Hey! That's 400 thread silk! Quit dragging the sleeves!
Unless all those words have a different meaning in their world, I call bull. Also, he isn't dragging the sleeves. Apparently, pastlings like Blanc can smell portals. I feel like that's a world building problem in the making. If Phobos has been trying to get to Earth for years, why not employ, or I guess should I say enslave, a bunch of pastlings to look for portals for him? Also, fuming Hay Lin in the background is funny.
I made those for Caleb! If I find him, he's going to wish Phobos found him first!
They do find the portal. It's in a manhole cover. Thank God this city is usually so empty, or someone may have noticed it, along with the 5 girls just floating above the street.
Why is it always dark here?
Different time zones. Evil's 5 hours ahead of us.
Okay, I know that's probably not true, but now I'm curious about the states of time between the worlds. The girls decide they need a disguise and barter for some cloaks. Caleb, meanwhile, meets up with Aldern and they talk about what it's like on Earth. Caleb thinks it's weird. I don't disagree.
And they say "like" in the middle of sentences for no reason.
It sounds good.
Aldern, he has told you nothing to elicit that reaction. Raythor, meanwhile, is gloating about how he'll get W.I.T.C.H's job and W.I.T.C.H will go into the abyss of shadows if the key isn't found. This scene is here just to remind us of the stakes. I'm going to be honest, the show has a real jumping around problem. I can identify the narrative reasons these scenes are put where they are, but it's still quite jarring.
There's something I need to return to the castle.
Impossible. You'd need the Guardians of the Veil to get inside there.
Ask and ye shall receive. Okay, so how recognizable are the Guardians exactly? The salesman didn't seem to know who they were even after Taranee used magic to dry his firewood, but this guard and Aldern seem to recognize them on sight even without seeing the wings. Caleb insists he doesn't need help, but still accepts it anyway, probably because he knows the girls won't leave him, and they sneak into the castle.
Hey, we're Prince Phobos' horses!
Just the most top-notch of security. I see why you'd need the Guardians to get in here.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be easy with 5 girls tagging along.
Hey, we are not tagging along, Mr. Brave Hero.
Shh.
Honestly, Caleb, I haven't seen anything to convince me it won't be. And Will, you are kind of tagging along with him. Also, I found a possible plot hole. Phobos should be able to tell the Heart of Kandrika is in the castle like he did in the last episode. Or is it that he can't sense it when the girls are transformed? Or did he notice and just decide to not tell anyone for fun because I keep saying he shouldn't be in the episode?
Because I don't know what it is about synthetic fibers, but they give me such a...
Okay, what's the point of all the cloaks if people are going to recognize them as intruders anyway? The fight scene is pretty good. It's the first example of them skillfully using their powers and fighting individually. Honestly, all that practice is paying off. I don't believe he made contact with those two. My favorite moment in the fight? Also, shout out to Cornelia for making all the guards feel the need to kill this specific table. Finally, when the episode has used up its allotted time for fight scenes, Irma and Hay Lin just freeze the rest of the guards. The Guardians arrive right as W.I.T.C.H is about to be pushed into the pit. Fortunately, Phobos and Cedric have no interest in watching this, and Will knocks Raythor out with one punch. Then, Taranee hypnotizes a guard to fall asleep. What? At first, it seems like there isn't really a way to cover for the key's sudden reappearance until Will has an idea. She tells W.I.T.C.H to call for help, then plants the key on Raythor before telling him to lie down like he's been knocked out. Reinforcements arrive and the Guardians escape. Raythor looks weird without his helmet. Also, he's implicated when the key falls off him and W.I.T.C.H manages to get off. Honestly, this was a pretty good plan on Will's part. My biggest problem with it is the bad guys should wonder why the Guardians showed up anyway, but I guess they just assume it was to beat up more of their men. Maybe they should have stolen something. But with Raythor in trouble, W.I.T.C.H exonerated, and the plot neatly wrapped up, this surprise part 3 to the adventures in Phobos' castle is over. I really hope it's not this easy to get in after this. Then again, Cedric and Phobos might be the only one who could actually stop the Guardians. Back on Earth, Will and Irma have fleas from their cloaks and Hay Lin is going back to her fashion career. With Blanc, who without the black cape Hay Lin puts on him for some reason, is now at the top of this episode's outfit ranking.
He looks like an overgrown raisin.
Caleb jealous.
And then the episode ends not with an ominous warning, but with a dance party.
I thought all Earthlings were strange, but I'm beginning to think it's just the females.
Wait, Caleb, have you actually met any male Earthlings besides the ones you've already described as being strange? Another good episode. In fact, probably the best one so far. A little contrived in its setup, but I do love how it builds on previous events with sorts of logical consequences, and the conclusion was unpredictable. Caleb comes away with more depth, Will comes away looking smarter, and the group as a whole comes away looking stronger, while Blanc comes away looking annoying for causing all of this in the first place. I'm guessing this is all set up for some character arc he's gonna go through about not being so useless. What are your thoughts on this episode and this video? Tell me in the comments below, and while you're at it, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more content. Thank you, and good day.